My name is Bert, and this is the Still Life Podcast. Welcome back to another episode of the Still Life Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Bert. So, today I wanted to talk a little bit about chemistry. And I know that sounds kind of weird, but, it came about because a couple of my favorite shows, Top Gear, the original UK version, and then the Grand Tour on Amazon Prime, two of my absolute all-time favorite shows. While I enjoy both shows immensely and I do enjoy cars and the automobile industry, that's not the biggest reason why I enjoy those shows as much as I do. I enjoy those shows because of who's hosting them. Now, I know that kind of might sound a little weird that I watch a show primarily because of the hosts, but it's true. The hosts, the former hosts of Top Gear, now have the Grand Tour on Amazon Prime, and that's Richard Hammond, James May, and Jeremy Clarkson. Now, they are three very unique, very individual people, but the chemistry of the three of them together is unlike on-screen chemistry for any other combination that I've ever seen in my life. And quite frankly, it's just magical. I mean, in general, I am a casual car fan. I like going to auto shows, hot rod shows. I like reading about cars. The technology fascinates me, but I'm not like a super car junkie like enthusiast. I'm a casual enthusiast at best. But the chemistry between those three presenters, like I said, is second to none. The way that they kind of feed off of each other and play off of each other is just spectacular. And they all get along very, very well. They all take cracks at each other, nitpick on each other, play pranks on each other and things like that. And they just frustrate the living crap out of each other. But at the end of the day, it's those interactions that really make those shows worth watching over and over and over again. Just last week, I restarted Top Gear. It's season 1, and that's what I watch at bedtime. When I'm laying in bed before I go to sleep, I'll throw Top Gear on, because I've seen the episodes so many times. But I love them. Not so much for the informational aspect, but just the interactions between those three guys talking to each other, and it just so happens that they're talking about cars. I've tried to watch later seasons of Top Gear where they replace the hosts, and, I've watched Top Gear US, and those just don't do it for me because they're missing that special element of the chemistry between the presenters. And why that is so important, not just, for those shows, but how that translates into my life is that, we as humans long to have those same kind of bonds with people that we surround ourselves with. My closest friends, I want to be able to have those same interactions, give each other a hard time, aggravate each other, but at the end of the day, we've all got each other's backs. And, that kind of chemistry I long for in relationships personally. And so, I think to see that on the screen in that way, and it's just such a natural chemistry, it makes you desire and seek that out in your own life. Not that we don't already do that anyway, but it kind of makes you long for it a little bit more. And it's that kind of chemistry on a screen that makes shows last a lifetime, whether or not they only run for a year or 2 years or, 10 or 20 years. It doesn't matter. It's, that chemistry that makes you go back to it again and again and again, and it becomes classic television. And again, having those same types of chemistries and relationships in our personal lives, those are the friends that tend to last a lifetime. Those don't tend to be the friendships where, we're friends for a couple years and then we kind of grow apart and move on. You always kind of find a way to hang on to those friends for as long as you possibly can and stay close to those friends for as long as you possibly can, because those, in a lot of ways, tend to be some of the most valuable friendships because of those interactions that you can have. Sometimes you piss each other off on purpose. Sometimes you play pranks on each other, or have a laugh at each other's expense, but at the end of the day, you can tell that friend absolutely anything. You can be vulnerable and transparent about anything and everything with those friends, and they've got your back 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and vice versa. You've got their back, 24/7, 365. And it's just really interesting to, look at a television series like both of those, Top Gear and the Grand Tour, and see that chemistry, and then, think about how that applies to your own life. Because, it's not all the time we just turn on the TV and we're like, oh, how can I apply these things to my life? Or what lesson is this car show going to teach me that's not at all related to cars, but related to some other aspect of my life? I mean, we don't watch shows typically for that reason. A lot of times it's for entertainment more than, educational or informative purposes outside of like the news. But sometimes we watch shows and we find ourselves going back to those shows for one reason or another, whether it's, something nonfiction, informational, educational, or something that's fiction, fantasy, whatever it is, because there's something that draws us back to it. It may be the plot line. Normally it has something to do with, interactions or relationships on whatever it is that we're watching, watching a relationship grow and unfold, and watching interactions between, real live people or actors playing a role, whatever the case may be. There's something that draws us back, and oftentimes we really don't think about it. We just know we like it for whatever reason. One of my all-time favorite movies is Fight Club, which, as much as it's an action movie, and a phenomenal book, it's really almost like kind of a psychological thriller in a way. You're seeing this guy that's struggling with this internal conflict, and then he develops this relationship with another character, and you see this relationship grow. And, I'm not going to give away the end of the movie, even though this movie's 25 years old. Doesn't matter. If you haven't seen it, I encourage you to, because it's a phenomenal movie. But it just really makes you think about things, or at least it did for me. It was a very well directed movie. Like I said, the book is phenomenal as well, but it really makes you kind of stop and think about things. And to me, that's when I really get drawn into, a book, a movie, a TV show, whatever it is when there's some sort of thought-provoking aspect to it. And like I said, I don't care whether it's fiction or nonfiction, doesn't matter. When it makes me think about something other than the subject that, is the overlining concept of, the book or show or whatever, that's when I find myself going back for more and going back to watch it or read it again and again and again. And the same thing goes for content that we listen to, whether it's songs or, audiobooks or even other podcasts. Two of my favorite podcasts are Heroin Has a Great Publicist, which is written and hosted by a friend of mine, Chris Newberg. And then I'm also a big fan of This Past Weekend, which is one of Theo Vaughn's many podcasts. And, I enjoy them not just because I get good laughs, but because, both Chris and Theo just, they're very genuine and they seem to be very endearing people. I mean, I know Chris personally, and he's an incredible person, and I love him to death. Theo, I have no personal connection to, but he has that very, kind of down-to-earth, endearing quality about him. It's like, man, I feel like I could be good friends with this guy. And so again, for me, that's what draws me back and draws me in, as well as, the entertainment value in those podcasts. But, going full circle back to the beginning here, it doesn't matter whether I'm, reading, watching, listening, whatever the case may be, the thing that draws me back time and time again is there's something that I either relate to with, a person or a character, or I find myself, saying, well, I could be friends with that person. I could see myself, having a beer with that person, whatever the case may be. So, as we listen and read and take in content, think about what attracts you to those things and what makes you go back time and time again. Is it the content itself, or is it the person presenting the content? And with that, I'd like to thank you for joining me once again on the Still Life podcast. As always, for questions, comments, topic ideas, suggestions, or if you're interested in becoming a sponsor of the Still Life podcast, you can reach us, thestilllifepodcast@gmail.com. That's the Still Life Podcast at gmail.com. Don't forget to check us out on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at The Still Life Podcast, and be sure to follow, like, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Still Life Podcast. Thanks again for joining me today on The Still Life Podcast. We'll talk again soon.